You know, I think I'm getting better at poker, but never did I ever think that I have the chance at winning 15 straight sessions. And that's what we're chasing today, going for our 15th straight positive session. I have a friend, Dan, and I remember him specifically saying multiple times how fantasy football takes so much more skill than poker. Well, Dan, have you ever won 15 straight fantasy football games? Stuck in traffic, but you know what? Some days you don't feel it. Today, I feel locked in. Doesn't mean I'm gonna run good, but I feel locked in. I can't wait. Let's go.
First hand joins a little bit late. We've got King 10 offsuit from the hijack. We raise pre-flop to 15 and get a couple callers. We get top pair on a King 8-6 flop and continue for 20. The button folds, but the big blind check raises all in for 124. Well, poop. He might have a weaker king, but more than likely if he's shoving here, I'm significantly behind. If there was a flush draw, I might consider calling, but there's not. I haven't seen this guy play many hands, and there aren't many draws out there. I fold. Playing a similar hand, King Jack offsuit from the cutoff. The hijack opens to 15, and I 3-bet to 50. He's been a solid player, but he's been opening a little bit wide with hands like Queen Jack offsuit, Queen 10 offsuit, and I don't want to just call and invite others to play, so I 3-bet to 50 and he calls. Get an above average flop with Jack 9 deuce rainbow. He checks, and I'm going to bet for both protection and for value. I make it 60 and he calls. Turn brings in the Jack of spades. I think a bet here is going to make him fold almost anything other than pocket nines or spades. And if I miss the flop with something like ace king or ace queen, here's where I'd slow down and check it back after the flop. So I decide to check for deception. The river's the 2 of hearts. He checks again. I'm almost sure I've got the best hand. And with the board being double paired, I think I can get calls from 8s, 9s, and maybe even ace high. So I put out a bet of $100. He doesn't take too long and makes the call. And sure enough, my full house is a winner. A couple orbits later, we're going up against the same player, this time with pocket nines from the hijack. He makes it 15 from the low jack, and of course, I'm 3-betting this all day long. I make it 50. It folds back around, and he makes the call. So we're going heads up in position to a flop of King 7-3 rainbow. I bet $20 for protection, and the low jack makes the call. I don't know why I decided to go so small on this. In hindsight, it makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know what I was thinking here. But the turn comes in the ace of spades. I don't love the fact that there are 2 overcards, but I have a significant range advantage on this board now. So I make it 55 and he calls once again. Now I'm planning to just go ahead and check it back on basically any card other than a 9. And the river comes in another ace, which is good because I think it makes it less likely that he has an ace. Nevertheless, when he checks, I check it back and give up. And he shows ace jack offsuit. So it's good that we didn't fire one more barrel there because we certainly would have gotten snapped off. We'll chip down a little bit, move on to the next hand. What do you know? Another hand with king jack offsuit from later position. This time I'm in the cutoff. There's one limper. I bump it up to 18 and get called by the button, the big blind, and our friendly opponent in the hijack. Flop comes in jack, jack, deuce, rainbow. Okay, I'm way ahead. There are 4 players though, so I want to start building the pot. I throw out a C bet of $18 into 70 and get looked up by the button and the big blind. The hijack folds, so we're going 3 ways to a turn of the ace of hearts. This is a good card for my range, but I'm afraid that if I bet, they're going to be either afraid of the jack or of the ace. And I'm going to have plenty of hands here that are going to want to slow down 3 ways like kings, queens, 10s, or even 9s. So once again, I check the turn for deception and it checks around. The river comes in the 9 of hearts and it's time for me to bet for value. I bet 60 and the button raises to 180. The button has been pretty snug. I don't see him raising here with just an ace, so I think more than likely I'm up against a full house. The big blind gets out of the way. I'm going to be honest, I hate this spot, and all of a sudden I'm regretting checking back the turn because I think it let my opponent get there. But at the end of the day, My hand is just too strong to fold. I put in the call, and he says good call and shows ace-10 offsuit. Really don't understand what he was trying to do here, but we will take the extra $120 of value as we scoop almost a $500 pot. We go to the new table and get rewarded with the best hand in poker, pocket aces from the cutoff. It's a limp fest, and I bump it up to 17. 3 players make the call, and we go to the flop of ace-8-6 with 2 spades. It checks to me, and I put out a tiny continuation bet, trying to get value from any of those hands with a spade in it, and if someone happens to have a lower set, I think they're going to come back over the top. A player in early position who's been calling a lot of flops makes the call, and everyone else gets out of the way, so we're heads up to the turn of the 3 of diamonds. He checks, and now I bump it up a little bit. I make it 45 to go, hoping to get value from all those spades hands. And that was a major mistake because he folds and there was a high hand available, which at the time had risen to $900. In order to qualify for the high hand, you need a full house with aces full of deuces or better. And if I'm looking at the odds right, I had about a 22% chance of getting there on the river. Sure, I could get rivered, but for a $900 potential payout that I'm going to hit at least 1 out of 5 times, I really regret betting the turn. So early position folds, we take down a very small pot. Oh, what could have been with pocket aces. A win is a win, and let's keep it going with ace-queen suited from the cutoff. Once again, 2 people limp, and I bump it up to 17. We're 3 ways to a flop of ace-8-7 rainbow. It checks to me, I make it 20, under the gun calls, and the low jack folds. The turn comes in the ace of diamonds, so sitting here with trip aces, I decide I don't want to repeat history. I make it only $20 to go, trying to entice the under the gun player to stick around. And sure enough, he puts in the call, and we go to the river of the 4 of hearts. Now he donks $20, and at a 1/6 sizing, I'm on the fence about if I can raise and get value from worse. I go back and forth and ultimately land on raising, so I make it 60 for value with plans of folding if he comes back over the top. He quickly calls and shows 6-5. Pretty disgusted with how I played these 2 hands so far, as I flopped a set of aces, and then I followed it up by turning trip aces, and I managed to find myself in the red between the 2 hands. We need to do a lot better. King 10 of spades on the button seems like the hand to do it. There's a limp fest, and the tight player seated to my right raises to 15. This player has hardly raised at all since I've sat down, so I'm going to put his raising range as one that's pretty narrow, which means I'm behind. Sure, it's going to invite other players to come along, but I think the right play, especially in position, is just to go ahead and make the call. And that invites 3 other players to come along as well. So we are 5 ways to a flop, which really could not come much better. 10-7-6 with 2 spades. So we've got top pair and the flush draw. And as I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, the big blind donks for $30, and the next 2 players call. And after that, the initial raiser in the cutoff raises to 130. Well, I thought I liked where I stood, sitting here with top pair and a flush draw, but I have to now put the cutoff on an overpair. If I didn't have a 10, I might even include a possible set of 10s, but since I blocked 10s, there's only one combination of 10s left, so I'm guessing it's jacks, queens, kings, or aces. I've learned the lesson of trying to get 1-3 players off of their overpairs, so my options here are call or fold. I don't love my chances, but in position, I think I have to call. I put in 130. The big blind, who was the initial donk better here, now gets out of the way, but the other 2 players both call. So we've got a pot of about $600 and get an unproductive jack of clubs turn before it can get to the initial raiser sitting in the cutoff. Middle position bets 300, which is the max, and the cutoff folds. Wow, maybe you can get someone to fold out an overpair. Middle position is this calling station that for the most part has been getting out of the way when he hasn't had it. And the one hand where he's kind of let out when he wasn't the initial raiser, that's straight against my trip aces. The fact that he's leading out here into 3 other players is extremely strong. and I think represents 2 pair at bare minimum. One of the players yet to act is short stacked, and I'd be calling $300 for the chance at improving to either a flush or trips, both of which are a pretty slim chance, and neither of which would guarantee that I'd have the winning hand. This was almost a dream flop, but I have to fold. I get out of the way. The short stack makes the call. The river's the 8 of hearts, and middle position didn't need it as he shows 9-8 for a flopped straight. Under the gun said he had both a gutter and the nut flush draw, so we were drawing dead despite that beautiful flop. Today is heading south. We need a get right hand, and we need it fast. Didn't get a chance to film this one, so you're just going to have to take my word. Jack 9 offsuit and a $10 bomb pot. Flop comes out Jack 9-7, so bam, we've got top 2 pair. The big blind bets 35, and I am not going to let people see a free card on such a connected board. I make it 100, and the worst thing that could happen happens as the old guy sitting on the button who is only playing premium hands decides to rip it all in against 2 opponents being this aggressive in a bomb pot. I don't love top 2 pair. I make a tight fold, and sure enough, the old guy shows that he had 10-8. It holds up. The big blind says he folded Jack 7 for top and bottom pair, and the small blind had Queen Jack, so I was drawing to a whopping 2 outs. Pretty rough flop for Jack 9 to go up against a straight, but it is what it is. Glad we made the good fold. But we need to get some luck here. It's King Jack of clubs, and I'm in the small blind. 2 players limp. I bump it up to 25, and only the hijack makes the call, so we're going heads up, out of position, to King 9-4 rainbow. I put out a small c-bet for value, making it $20, and the hijack calls. Turns the queen of clubs, now giving me a flush draw. Once again, I bet for value. I make it 50, and the hijack is all in for 175. I don't really have to think about this one too much. With top pair and the flush draw, I make the call. River comes in, the queen of hearts, and the hijack reveals that he had lower clubs, so he was drawing dead. That's the kind of hand that we needed. Now we've got some momentum. Let's keep it going. Ace queen in the low jack. I raise to 15 and get 2 callers. Flop comes ace king 9 with 2 hearts. I continue for 30, and 1 player makes the call. And that is the perfect time to introduce a foe that will pop up several times throughout the day. And we're going to call him Raoul. He's one of these players that just loves to see a flop. And he's in 60 to 70% of hands, at least to the flop, if not beyond. So Raoul calls our continuation bet, even though this flop is absolutely going to nail our range, and the turn comes in the 9 of diamonds. He's going to have way more 9s than I do, and I'm not super concerned about hearts because I've got the ace of hearts, so that makes that less likely. I've also seen him bet almost every time his opponent has checked back. So I'm going to check for pot control, because I don't have as many 9s as he does, and I'm pretty confident that if he happens to bet, I can call him on almost any river. River comes in the 2 of hearts, so sure enough, the front door flush draw does get there, but when Raoul bets $50, I have nothing to do other than to call, and he shows Queen Jack of hearts. Well, we could have charged him more on the turn, but I don't think there's any way that we get him to fold a combo draw, especially with the type of player that he is. Just a bad river. And it could have been worse had we fired every street. $6 button straddle is on, which means the small blind is first to act. It folds around to a player in middle position who was the one who went all in with lower clubs when we had King Jack of clubs a few hands back. He's a little bit on tilt and he raises to 25. Sitting here in the cutoff, if I make the call, I think the button will be priced in. And I think raising allows me the chance to take it down or to get more information on where my opponent stands. So I 3-bet to 75. It folds around in middle position and he makes the call. Pretty good flop of 9-5 deuce with 2 clubs. I really like this flop as it's unlikely that he raised $25 with either pocket 2s or pocket 5s. And since I block pocket 9s, it's highly doubtful that he's got a set. Based on the pre-flop betting, I'm more likely to have overpairs or at least bigger overpairs. So when he checks, I c-bet to $80. This puts his middling pairs in a tough spot and makes him likely to fold out his overcards. And I'm feeling pretty happy with myself, but less than 2 seconds after I put my 80 bucks in, he is all in for 162. If he was deeper stacked, this would be a tougher call, but with top pair in a 3-bet pot where there's a flush draw out there against a tilted opponent, I only need to put in another 80 bucks or so to win a pot of 470, so I'm never folding. I flick in the call. The turn comes in the 3 of diamonds and the river pairs the board with the 2 of spades. My opponent announces having a 9, which is not a good thing, but then he shows 10-9 offsuit, so our jack plays and we take it down. King, Queen of Hearts, that's beautiful. Trying to build some momentum, and we've got another hand with a $6 button straddle is on. I'm in the big blind, so I raise it to 25 and get called by a player who's in middle position. He's only got 130 bucks left, and he's played kind of spastically when he's been short stacked, so I need to be careful, but I really like the flop of Queen 5-5. I mentioned needing to be careful because he's just been super aggressive when his back's been against the wall, so I'm going to set the trap. I check, and just like that, my opponent is all in for 130 bucks. I'm just sitting here waiting for those chips to cross the line, and once they do, I flick in the call. I hate the turn of the ace of spades, and the river is the deuce of clubs. I announce just a queen, and my opponent announces having a full house. Ugh, he must have had ace 5, but nope. He shows pocket 2s. We got it in more than great, as we had 92% equity in this $310 pot. It's not a massive pot, but that one stings just a little bit more, especially in a herky-jerky day where we just cannot string 3 hands in a row together. Well, it looks like the poker gods feel bad for me, as the button straddle is on once again, and I look down at red pocket aces. Sitting under the gun, I'm of course going to bump this up. I make it 22 to go, and the button calls. Flop comes in ace 4-3, top set again. Let's frickin' go. I've got top set on a pretty safe board, and I've still got a chance to improve to either quads or a full house, which once again would pay me something extra. It won't give me the $900 that it would have given me earlier because the high hand's been hit, but nevertheless, I think it's time to check it back and hope to improve. My opponent on the button checks it back as well, and the turn comes in the 3 of clubs. We are boated up, and now it's time to start betting for value. I make it 25 to go, and the button puts in the call. The river's a king. It really doesn't matter. I hope he's got something. I try and make it look like I'm grabbing a random amount of chips. It ends up being 50 bucks exactly. He doesn't take too long before making the call, and sure enough, my full house is a winner. Even though this is just a medium-sized pot, we do collect an extra $200 in our pocket for a high hand of the hour. Thank you, poker gods. That was much needed. Maybe we can flop back-to-back sets as we raise pocket 8s from under the gun to 15. Middle position 3 bets to 50, and it folds back around to us. This opponent has been pretty straightforward today. Super nice guy, but I've also seen him chicken out a few times on scary runouts, and he will sometimes see monsters under the bed when they really shouldn't be there. So even though I'm probably behind, that factors into how I'm going to go ahead and play this hand. We make the call and get the flop of Queen 5 deuce with 2 clubs. I check, and he continues for 60. Against most straightforward players, the fact that he's still c-betting after I've called his pre-flop $50 3-bet means that I can pretty confidently put him on one of 5 hands. That would be ace-queen, ace-king of clubs, or queens, kings, or aces. In reality, that puts me around a 10 to 15% equity against that range, but I also know if I call and we get a scare card, he will check back the turn and I can just go ahead and bomb the hell out of the river. Despite knowing I'm a heavy underdog, I think it's worth it to pay to see a turn. So that's what we do. And I want you to just visualize the perfect turn card. Just go ahead and visualize it. And boom! 8 of diamonds shows up out of nowhere. I'm going to go ahead and check again. And thankfully, middle position continues, this time for a sizing of 120. I think about my sizing for a while and I land on 340 because I'm afraid that a club is going to scare him off. Unfortunately, my opponent immediately starts scratching his head and dives straight into the tank. He asks if I turned a set of eights, says tight laydown, and middle position folds. Wow, I got soul red. Great play by him, folding at least ace queen or better. In hindsight, maybe I need to go with a min raise here, one that he really can't get away from. It's frustrating to get that miracle card and then not really get paid off, but I guess I can't really complain. We definitely sucked out on our opponent, and now we've got serious momentum and are up for the day. Next hand starts a little bit late, but to catch you up quickly, I 3-bet King Jack offsuit from the button and get called by the initial raiser under the gun. Flop comes Jack 8-6 rainbow, I c-bet $50 and he makes the call, and we get the river the 3 of clubs. Getting back to real time, I continue for 125, and if he happens to call, I'll probably slow down on a river. But it doesn't come to that, as he slowly starts counting out raising chips, and he puts 325 of them out into the middle of the table. This is a super strong line. He hasn't been spewy, he hasn't been super aggressive, and I just hate paying off a player who hasn't been playing many hands. Sadly, this is similar to the hand where I just turned a set of eights, but now the shoe is on the other foot, and I just cannot justify calling here. So this time, I'm the one making the tight fold. I toss my top pair into the muck, and we chip down a couple $100. Just like that, we are back on the roller coaster. Pocket tens from the big blind. Raoul opens it up from the cutoff to 15. The small blind calls, and I 3-bet to $70. Raoul calls the 70, the small blind gets out of the way, and the flop comes in 9-8-4. I've got an overpair. Raoul could have Lord knows what, so I need to bet for both protection and for value. I make it 100, and he instantly calls. Things turn from bad to worse on the ace of clubs. Out of position, I don't think I can keep firing here, so I check, and Raoul doesn't take too long before putting in 2 stacks of red into the middle. I hate this turn. I hate this feeling because I really have been losing to Raoul all day long. I turn and ask, "Are you bluffing?" And he says, "Of course." I sigh and I fold, and he shows pocket fours. Come on, this guy is just kicking my butt today. Damn it, Raoul. And we get another dose of Raoul as we have queen 10 of clubs. We raise for middle position, and he 3-bets from the blinds to 45. Since we're just going to be heads up and I'm in position, I make the call and get rewarded with a flop of queen 7-4. We flop top pair. Surprisingly, Raoul checks, and I'm not going to tempt fate. I check it back. The turn is the 6 of hearts, and now he sizes up with an overbet of $100. So this is kind of a strange line. I'm just going to go ahead and make the call, and now I'm hanging on for dear life as the river comes in the jack of spades. So now the front door flush has come in. He could have had jacks, and when he checks it back, I just instantly check it back, and sure enough, he shows pocket kings. So even when we flop top pair, we're going up against an overpair, and this guy just has my number. Maybe I should just get up and leave right now. But I'm a competitive guy, and I start feeling better as I look down at pocket queens in a bomb pot. Flop comes out 10, 8, 7, rainbow. I bet 25 and get raised by under the gun. Folds back around to me, and I could see him raising with something like jacks, ace 10, or maybe 2 pair. So I convince myself it's worth seeing one more card. That card is the 4 of diamonds, and when I check, under the gun continues for $200. This is that nice, straightforward guy I was telling you about, so I don't think twice. I throw my ladies into the muck, and he shows me the big suck. 9-6 for another flop straight, and bomb pots are just kicking my butt today. I don't see any killers at this table. I just need to run a little bit better, and maybe I can turn things around for that 15th straight win. We're just going to go ahead and skip showing you another hand where I lost to Raoul, where I'd raised king 10 suited pre-flop. He called me with 7-3 suited. He outflops me, holds on to my continuation bet, and ends up winning it with a pair of 7s. So now we fast forward to another bomb pot, and this time I've upgraded from queens to aces. A lot of aces today, and let's hope they're good. And we get the flop of 7, 4, 3 with 2 diamonds. It checks to me in middle position, and I throw out a bet of $12, as that's pretty much where my confidence level is. The cutoff calls and Raoul calls, so at least we didn't get raised, and we go to the turn of the 9 of diamonds, bringing in the front door flush. Raoul checks, and I'm not going to even attempt it. I check, the cutoff checks, and the river comes in the 5 of spades. So now the front door flush has gotten there. There's 4 to a straight, and Raoul bets $100. I instantly fold my hand, and the cutoff calls. Raoul surprisingly doesn't turn over a straight nor a flush, but he does show that he flopped a set of 7s. This is the one time that Raoul doesn't have a winner, as his pocket 7s are beaten by a rivered straight. So our aces come in third place, and we are just bleeding chips. And we go to the last filmed hand of the day, which is ace jack of clubs on the big blind. Middle position bumps it up to 10. Raoul calls, the small blind calls, and it's time to say YOLO. I put all $75 in the middle. The initial raiser calls, and I stand up. Of course, now that I'm uber short stacked, the flop comes out all clubs, and I'm left with nothing but the nuts. Middle position had ace-10 offsuit, so we were pretty significantly ahead. We're back up to $175 and live to see one more hand. Well, maybe this is just a flaw in my game, but my kryptonite, by far, is a calling station who just is on fire and can't stop hitting. There's nothing that takes my money more than a calling station on fire. The hands this man beat me with, pocket 4s in a 3-bet pot, and he flopped a set. 7-6 offsuit after I was all in with 9s. 7-3 suited. Well, that's what I get. Poker is a game that humbles you. Poker is a game that humbles you. And I came in hot and feeling good. I got my ass kicked. We were in for 700 and out for 2. And that was a $200 high hand because I got a boat of aces full of 3s. And the bomb pots were just brutal today. I don't think I won a single bomb pot, not a single one, and I got aces and queens, both of which lost, and I flopped top 2 against a straight. Well, the streak's over. I guess that's what I get for talking all that crap. So much for being locked in. I started thinking about how do I want to play against these players that are in 60, 70% of pots and not really super aggressive, but they're just there and they're running good. And it just feels like they're hitting everything. First, play more hands in position and play fewer hands significantly when out of position because it's so hard to put them on anything. Second, go with a bigger sizing. If I'm betting less often or less frequently, then I can bet with a bigger sizing and really put players in a bind when they're trying to chase their gut shot straight draws or some weak flush draw or maybe like third pair, which is what he did when he called me with 7-3 suited. And then finally, don't get cute. If I miss the flop, I miss the flop. I can let it go. I can check it back. And when I have it, don't, get all tricky. Just play straightforward, bet heavier, and really play ABC poker so that someone who's playing every hand is really going to be in trouble against the way that I'm playing my range. So that's my game plan for the future against Raoul or future Raouls. In position, bigger bets, don't get cute. What are your recommendations for when you're going up against players who are just on fire, hitting everything, and you really just can't put them on anything because of their range? Thanks for watching Poker for Pound Pups all the way until the end. and we will look forward to seeing you on vlog 22.
Hey everybody, subscribe here to catch the latest episodes. Also, hit that like button and share these videos with anyone who might enjoy them. Doing that really helps the channel and its goal to support dog shelters, so thanks for watching Poker for Pound Pups, and have a great day.